In the bigger picture though, as well as in the context of the cup final itself, we're going to take a look here today at the mental resilience of Celtic under Ange and of the laser focus that they're showing in each and every game. Whether that's a cup final or a run-of-the-mill league game, it's always the same. After, as you said, there was just so much noise coming from the Rangers camp during last week, and from a Celtic point of view, whether it was Ange, Callum McGregor, Carter Vickers, they just refused to be drawn on it. And generally speaking, I thought they played it to perfection. How do you think they handled the week in the run-up to the cup final?
Well, it ties in with this ongoing narrative around the focus on the next game, and what the stats would tell you is that seems to be true. They just don't get too far ahead of themselves. The St Mirren defeat now appears to be a complete anomaly. However, there were a lot of changes made at that time. I think the full midfield was almost rotated at the time or something like that. There was a new centre-half partnership, basically mitigating circumstances, and that's a wrong that they'll hopefully right at the weekend. But it's almost like Ange's first job is to get the players to buy in when he arrives. He's clearly done that. Individual players' performance has then improved, which then just creates that environment in the dressing room where the captain, senior pros, and even existing squad members are then all bought in. Guys who maybe previously weren't playing very often then get a chance, which then tells players, well, if I do what the manager's asking me to do, then maybe I'll get my chance. And that the whole spirit in the squad completely changes from one that was totally deflated after the season they'd had. So I just think we've just had that manager in to galvanise us, to create that mentality where the team unequivocally just believe in what they're doing and follow the mantra that the manager set.
Yeah, and on that, James, the kind of approach the players take, it clearly comes from the top down, and where Michael Beale and his players are happy to shoot their mouth off and provide the headlines, it's just not a thing that Ange and his players will entertain these days.
It's not in the culture, and culture's a big thing with Ange's teams. That going and shooting your mouth off, that's not doing us any favours if you are that way inclined. And this point about Ange has to get the players to buy in, he gets McGregor to buy in first, and then I think Tony Ralston is the pioneer for Ange. He was the first guy that signed for Ange as a new contract because he didn't have a right back to speak of. But Ralston took that as his opportunity to say, well, do you know what? I believe what this guy's saying. I can take my game from here to here. Greg Taylor's next. He saw what Ralston was doing, and you might have argued that Taylor was above Ralston ability-wise at that time, but he jumped up between last season and this. And then other people in the squad start to see what's going on, and they go, well, I can do that as well. None of that involves going bigging yourself up to the media, going on Instagram and doing daft talks like Giakoumakis and stuff like that. Giakoumakis was almost like the perfect, it could have been staged, some Joey Tribbiani.
Are you saying Jacko was a plant?
Maybe.
Come in here, score some goals and then ruffle some feathers, right?
I'll bag you.
And we'll move you out
and
the door.
nobody else will do it.
The thing though, what I was thinking there when you were talking about running your mouth off was Giakoumakis actually did do that. Remember when he said about comparing the squads and things?
Well, you're obviously better.
He had, I think, looking back, he is that bit of a loose cannon, probably that Ange humoured for a while, but then there was just one incident too many where he's went, no, kind of on you go for the sake of the balance of the squad. But I think in general, the Celtic players have kind of towed the line of just concentrate on the next game and good things will come.
Yeah. I don't think you've seen any Celtic players step out of line in that way for some time now, and it's very measured when they speak to the media, and it doesn't matter who it is. Callum McGregor's excellent when he talks, and it's getting more impressive each time, but whether it's him, Carter Vickers, Taylor, anyone you care to mention, James, it's the same message and it's the same tone time after time.
But it's the same as Ange's interviews. Ask me questions about football, the team, the next game, and I'll wax lyrical. Ask me about anything else and you'll get short shrift. The players follow that lead, or McGregor follows that lead and that follows to the players. It must be pretty boring for a reporter trying to get a rise out of Celtic players because it's just not happening.
Yeah, you're right. But in terms of the game itself, so Celtic obviously put themselves into a commanding position, but did find themselves under a bit of pressure at 2-0. And that's when players need to show up and show their mental side of the game. We know they're all good players, but you need to have a real focus at that moment in time. And I think this is for guys like Starfelt that you mentioned, James, Carter Vickers, and Alistair Johnson, who we'll talk about in a wee bit. This is where those guys really stepped up, Muff.
Absolutely, and it's fanciful to think you'll go through a season where you won't be under any sort of defensive pressure. The team has to fall into a shape, protect each other, protect the areas of the pitch that the opposition can be most dangerous in. And I think for the most part, the team as a whole did do that very well. But ultimately in football, when teams look to go direct, as will often happen when they fall behind, It's a natural thing to do. You try and get the ball up the pitch quicker. You then need your centre halves and your keeper to have big performances, because the centre halves have to attack the ball, need to get their timing right. Play can become more frantic, and I think that's something that, in the context of Rangers as a team, when the game becomes frantic, that seems to really suit their style of play for whatever reason.
What do you call it? Chaos ball?
I think that's accepted. It's what's successful for Gerrard, and it's what Beale's brought back away from Van Bronckhorst.
It's what brought their goal.
100%. That goal is pure chaos.
Stramash in the box.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk, Matt, I think we spoke in the post-match about, being brave in football. It's not just about smashing into tackles and squaring up to guys and all that stuff. It's about, certainly under Ange Postecoglou, it's about far more than that. It's about, keeping your discipline, keeping your shape, and specifically, I think, being willing to take the ball in tight areas. Miff's mentioned it, and we talked about the the Starfelt turn in the box. Heart and mouth stuff, but he's been brave enough to try it, for it to come off, and for him to then start another attack.
And also, it's the benefits of doing it that it eliminates 3 players from that are up Celtic's end of the pitch to press the ball. It eliminates them, allows us to break through, and we're on the counter, and then within a pass, our entire back line's up at the halfway line, and Rangers are pinned in again. I think just the biggest highlight for me is the both goals. Both goals are a pattern of play which have developed under Ange, and if you look at a lot of Celtic goals, they will have very, very, very similar patterns of play. It's just the players are so well drilled, and I think that you talk about mentality. I think both of them are interlinked. It's that mentality just to keep going, no matter what type of game. That has been our biggest game of the season so far, and yet they're still doing the very same things that they're doing repetitively against teams at home at Celtic Park, against teams away, regardless of the scoreline.
Yeah.
I think that's the most telling thing about the team's mentality. They just keep grinding and they just keep going.
I would say patterns of play in the goals, in that they start the same and they end the same. They start with the ball being recycled back to defenders and end up with the ball in the net. But there's a lot of variety in between a Starfelt or Carter Vickers and Kyogo scoring in the goals, because it might go down this way, it might come back a few times, whatever. But they're really patient with it, and they really were for both goals, really, I suppose. They just kept possession, found the right opening. Moy ran off his marker left, Taylor free to take down the left, and that's where it came from.
I mean, the defending from Rangers for the first goal in particular is absolutely horrendous.
Lundstrom
just jacks it. Yep. Absolutely jacks it, and then Goldson. I don't know where Goldson's gone.
Goldson's just Davies. I thought
Goldson's I thought Davies pulled, but Goldson's no marking him. Goldson's just kind of behind Tavernier. So
shouting at folk.
That is a you see. Look at that, and you look at it in the 42nd, 43rd minute, and go, "Oh, what's happening there?" But that's as a consequence of the movement that's happened before, of the runs inside, outside that the fullbacks have made, that the wingers have made. It creates that confusion.
There's also, you could say there's a bit of fatigue. Celtic have been probing, throughout the first half, but it's only in the last couple of minutes of the half that they actually get the goal. And at that point, Rangers have switched off. I think you can take your pick. You've mentioned a few guys. I think Kamara switches off as well. There's all sorts of guys that just stop doing their job, and that's all Celtic need. They find that wee space at the opportune moment. Before the first goal, Reo Hatate does a 360. If you watch it, he gets the ball and he does a full circle, not just for a laugh, not just to show off. Like, he's just got the time to fully reposition his body, and Moyes found the space in behind, and the rest is history. I was going to ask if you lads have seen or read the Keith Jackson stuff. He describes the second goal as, I'm cutting it short here, but he basically says Tavernier gives it away, and eventually Kyogo bundles it over the line. It is really, really dismissing what I think was a 9-pass move by Celtic, where Starfelt intercepts, as you mentioned, James. Callum McGregor drives forward, finds Moy, finds Hatate, finds Kyogo, goal. It's a really, really good goal. And just because the final execution isn't a smash into the top corner doesn't mean it's not a brilliant goal. And guys like that are all too quick to play down what was brilliant football.
So that is what football is. That's the definition of total football. Retain possession, pass and move, get your ball in, score, right? That's what football's meant to be. And you've got guys who are meant to be your cheerleaders of Scottish football. I mean, I've not read his article, I've seen enough of it in terms of bits about on social media. He's just talking down the game, and it's like, well, what's the point of you? What are you here for? Because your team didn't win, you're not happy? Fair enough, but that's not your job right now. Your job's to represent what that game was. Whatever it was a cup final that was a close scoreline in the end. There's an easy way to talk it up. I certainly enjoyed myself, John. Enjoy yourself.
Wonderful time.
Yeah. So, I don't know, just guys like that,
they
just bring the game down. It's no good to me.
The issue we have in Scotland is that the media, mainstream media, are really out only to appease one fan base, and you know, we can keep getting annoyed at it. Really, just don't buy it, just don't read it.
Yeah,
you know,
but that doesn't solve the problem of how you promote the game. You know, how we make the game bigger, because you see some games in England, you're going, that's absolute tosh, and then you read a reporter, it's like
I agree, but again, I think the people that are in situ have been there, and again, that comes from being in situ for a very long time. You know, how long's Jackson been writing for the Daily Record?
Too long.
Be close in 20 years or something like that.
No, I've been nearer 30.
So, you know, guys, that sounds somebody that's checked out in their job if they can't be bothered describing a goal properly.
Thinking I'm on the road out here anyway, I might as well just
that's all that sounds like.
Your job at Rangers News coming up.
Maybe so, but it's an interesting approach to take, because I think, say what you want about the game as a spectacle or whatever, and I thought it was a decent enough game, you know, pretty open at times, but 2 really good Celtic goals, and credit where it's due. So anyway, by the by, in the bigger picture, Celtic just continuously under Ange have shown real mental resilience, and over an extended period of time, and I'm going to give you some stats here to back that up. So Celtic lost 1-0 to Livingston on match day 6 of last season. We'll remember it at that time. You might not remember the exact date, but it was 19th of September 2021. And just short of a year and a half since then, we've played 58 league games, losing just one to St Mirren, that game on the 18th of September last year. We've played 7 League Cup games between this season and last, and we've won them all. Obviously, we've lifted the trophy twice during that time. We've played 6 Scottish Cup games between this season and last, and obviously we lost last year's semi-final in extra time. But that's 71 domestic games in nearly 18 months since the 19th of September 2021, and we've lost just once over 90 minutes. 71 games, lost just once in 90 minutes. James, what do you make of those numbers? It's incredible consistency.
You've got to add in where Celtic found themselves when Ange came into the building, or where Ange found Celtic when he came into the building. You know, it wasn't like he was picking up some tidy reins and just, you know, it's all going well, run with it. It's so much to do and pick us up from a really difficult position. So, even more so, but yeah, it takes an awful lot to just keep going and keep going. But when your manager tells you first thing he says, we don't stop, then it's locked in, and you see it every single week. They're relentless, and we're only ever improving, and it's just a matter of how much further we can go. Ange I caught a wee bit on the radio there coming in tonight, and he was saying, you know, we don't set our limits by someone else's arbitrary decision as to how far we can go. We set our own limits and we set our own targets, and we know where we're going. Yeah,
it's just clear, Miff, they've got their own disciplines internally, and you know, it'd be fascinating to sit in on a couple of sessions and hear just how they speak to each other. You know, there'll be so much that's behind closed doors, and rightfully so, but it's interesting for the likes of us to look at these big numbers, you know, 71 games and all that kind of stuff, but it's clear they live by this game by game approach. It's not just, you know, paper talk, it's very real, isn't it?
No, I think that proves it. Those stats you mentioned prove it. They're not getting ahead of themselves. They're not looking at, you know, Paddy mentioned like 20 points in the treble and things like that. Celtic will no doubt have their own internal metrics, but I genuinely believe the whole mindset and preparation goes to whoever is next. And I think someday, whether it be Ange or McGregor mentioned, you know, we'll celebrate in the right way, then we'll focus on preparing for St Mirren on Saturday. That was the post-match chat.
It was Ange was saying, I want them to have tonight.
Hold up, fellas. I've got the quote.
Hold on.
It's almost like you've read my mind.
We've got a pro in the room. Somebody brought a pro.
Beautiful segue, lads, but I've actually got the very quote. So you'll have heard it across the last 24 hours, but I'm going to repeat it here. So Ange says, I need to let them enjoy themselves and get rewarded tonight because they deserve it. That's what they'll do, and once we've enjoyed it and celebrated it in the right and proper manner, then come Tuesday, we'll focus on St Mirren away. Miff, I hope first of all you always celebrate in the right and proper manner, whatever that is. You may want to reveal that or not. But again, it just shows the focus in the team, doesn't it? We've just won a cup, James, and Ange is already saying, yep, cup, good stuff, enjoy it, but not too much, because Sunday we've got St Mirren away.
Yeah, but he did extrapolate that wee bit and say, you know, as he gets older, he gets better at celebrating that. And I know people in business like that as well. You know, they can't celebrate their last achievement because they're wanting to go on to the next one and stuff. And sports people are very similar to that, because it's all about the next challenge and the next, you know, target. But he said as he gets older, he's getting better at that. And he said if I don't let the players celebrate that, they can get to a point where they go, what's it all for?
Yeah.
You know, we need to mark the occasion. And then, yeah, fair enough, you know, reset the clock and then get back to training Tuesday and off we go for Saturday. But yeah, he's giving them some time on it.
Well, the person that will be most put out by that will be Jura, who asked for his day off after the title and get a short shrift.
Maybe Ange learned a lesson.
He did post on Instagram congratulating the boys and stuff like that. So Jura's still part of things. Not heard from Jacko. Not seen his post yet.
He was complaining that some red tape stuff, and I'm playing. I wish Jacko no harm at all, but he's made a mistake.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Matt, keen to ask you who you think are the key players driving these messages for Ange. So it's very obvious and very easy to talk about Callum McGregor. He's a given, and we can see just what a leader he's become over the last year and a half or so. But who else has really taken on that mantle for you, and who else really drives the team forward from a player's point of view?
Yeah, I think Joe Hart. I think Carter Vickers as well. Taylor. And probably Starfelt, because Ange was glowing in his praise for Starfelt just a matter of weeks ago, when I think his place was questioned because Kobayashi had come in and played for a couple of games and Ange wasn't having any at all. It was a case of, Carroll's been such an important player for us. I think Starfelt's style can sometimes come across as one that is, some people like it, some people don't. He always appears to have a wee rick in him, but in general, you see the way that he defends the box, and he's outstanding. Certainly was outstanding yesterday. But he seems to be that type of figure in the dressing room as well. I think Ange has placed a lot of emphasis on that centre-half partnership. And I think you've got two players at relatively similar stages in their career who've came together along with Joe Hart. And I think they're that solid base. You can see that Carter Vickers is obviously physically very imposing, but you can see him, even the way that when we conceded the goal, he absolutely thumped the turf yesterday. Anytime we concede a goal, regardless of the context of the game, he is fizzing. And that's when you go back to those standards, those internal standards. Don't want us a goal. It sounds like a very simple thing. We're get so much praise for being an attacking team, but we're fairly meagre in terms of concession of goals. So those standards, that mentality, it all comes into the one. And what you've got is you've just got a set of players that are brought into that, and I think none more so than somebody like Carter Vickers.
Yeah. James, I was going to say, you don't necessarily have to be particularly vocal to lead. So obviously we've got McGregor, he's clearly picked up where Scott Brown left off, and I think Carter Vickers can be vocal when need be. Joe Hart certainly does at times, but I think Hatate leads, I think Kyogo leads, I think Jota leads. It's not necessarily about shouting and screaming.
No, there's example leading. I think Jota's a big part of that. We spoke last week about Jota taking his whiteboard home and he's covered in tactics and stuff like that. That's a guy who's thinking, where do I need to be at every time, and where's my teammates, and how can I help, and how can I deliver for the team, not just for myself. So there's leading like that. I'd like to make sure Ralston gets a mention in this as well, because particularly last year I thought Ralston was a real leader, and just this injury has kept him out for longer than he'd have liked and we'd have liked, and he'll be back in time. He's been unfortunate that we've signed a really strong right back while he's been out in Johnson, but I thought Ralston was a big part of the title last year, and becoming one of the captains that we needed. Yeah,
and before I forget to mention it, I think real credit to guys like Tony Ralston and David Turnbull yesterday. It must be painful to be a sub not used in a cup final, and you see your teammates, giving it large and all that stuff, and rightfully so, and you don't really feel you've played your part. But they were there, and they were in the photos, and they were getting involved. There's a really good photo of the two in the dressing room. I don't know if you've seen it. The two boys with the cup between them. And I think as disappointed as they'll be, they realise that you can't cut about with the petted lip in this Ange Postecoglou team. You need to go all in on it and be just as happy for your teammates and work hard enough so that you get the chance next time around. I mean, James Forrest, big servant for Celtic, not even in the squad. Bernabe not in the squad. I seen a picture of Stephen Welsh at the very back of things. These guys aren't getting their opportunities at this moment in time, but they're playing a part, and they're you could be sure that if they weren't, Ange wouldn't have them around.
No, it can't be any of, but what about me? It's all about the team. And, Forrest will understand. He's an experienced pro. He would love to be there, of course. I may be more fear for Bernabe in that regard. Just a good bit younger and hasn't really got going for him yet. I think Forrest can take that kind of slight, as much as he wouldn't like to have been not in the squad at all. But he's seen plenty of squads come and go that good players have been left out. Bernabe could be a concern. We need to make sure there's a bit of a team around him to show him his path back to challenging Taylor as he did initially. So, but yeah, no one likes that. But it's all about, again, the culture of we're here for the team, not for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. If they won't say it out loud, and they'll continue to take everything game by game, but a treble must be somewhere in the players' minds, even if they don't let the manager hear them talk about it and all that kind of stuff. Where do you think they'll be after yesterday?
It's quite simple. It's natural for it to be in the players' minds, because of the lead in the league, and they've won the first trophy in offer, so they're still in the Scottish Cup. Why not? Albeit that the tie we've got in the Scottish Cup was probably as difficult as we could have had, so we've got that to come. But yeah, it's only natural for the players to think of that, and it's the thing they didn't do last year. They get close to doing it, so you've got every right to think that they'll be very, very keen to right that wrong.
Yeah, James, with 12 league games to go and potentially 3 Scottish Cup games in that very hard quarter final at Tynecastle that Miff mentioned, where are you in the treble dream?
Tynecastle away in a Scottish Cup quarter final is about as hard as it gets, apart from playing Rangers, maybe might be Ichi Peachy. So that's a challenge. They're all over the place in terms of form, I would say, but they'll be well up for that. So that's the big challenge. I think the league will take care of itself because they're just so professional in what they do there. They know that they'll be going out and just get your 3 points and back up the road. It's that quarter final you'd really think what's going on there. And then you obviously got 2 more games after that.
Yeah. League-wise, I've mentioned that we've lost 1 in 58 league games, and yet there was people, Neil McCann, saying that Michael Beale could still do a treble. And I think Andy Walker...
Don't think he can do it anymore.
No, I don't think he can. And I think Andy Walker was quite quick to put the brakes on that kind of chat. He said, listen, there's no way this Celtic side lose 3 games, or anything close to that.
It was 4 needed with the goal difference.
Yep, so nothing to see here. But overall, Ange and the players seem to be in a brilliant place at this very moment in time, and it's great to see. Still a fair bit of the season to go overall, but the signs are there that we could be in for something pretty special. So let's see how it all plays out. Okay, let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt, and we'll start with a quick reminder of last week's Mystery Celt for anyone who missed it. Just a mention here to Paddy, of course, who hosted last week and done a brilliant job, so thanks to him for that. He set last week's question, James, and it was a tough one, so I'll just remind you quickly.
Deliberately so.
Question 1, after leaving Celtic, I played for 3 English Premier League teams. Clue number 2, I was part of a team who knocked Celtic out of Champions League qualifying. And clue number 3, I captained my country in the 2006 World Cup. The answer, of course, was the great Mark Viduka, or Marco Viduka, as he was when he first came in.
Big Dukes.
I was going to say, yep, your very thoughts, James, on Big Dukes.
Loved him, and then was a bit crestfallen when he left because we knew we had a player in our hands there. Celtic were still in a bit of post Old Board turmoil. We hadn't found our feet, so there was a lot of changes, and Fergus wasn't paying the dough and all these kind of things that got him bad press. I thought he was a great player, but we didn't have the professional cohesion that we have at Celtic these days. If we did, we could have kept him longer, maybe.
The irony is he left just as Martin O'Neill was coming in. So Martin O'Neill was speaking.
I think O'Neill tried to keep him, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of his stories, that basically as soon as he came in, one of his first jobs was to try and convince Mark Viduka. He didn't fancy it and eventually left for Leeds, and he used some of the money to sign Chris Sutton. So it worked out pretty well. Aye. But it would have been interesting, Miff, to see Viduka and Larsson paired together for a fair bit longer, wouldn't it? Well,
it was Larsson's injury that effectively done for John Barnes, because Celtic had started the season in brilliant form. Viduka, personally, I thought he was a great player, but he came with baggage. Yeah. We knew that.
I mean, the moment he signed, he went off, didn't he?
He went off. So individually, he was an exceptional striker. Scored all different types of goals. Was very good. He was good at creating openings for himself through his skill, good turn, could use both feet. Strong centre forward as well. Was sad to see him go, but the path that it led us on led us to Sutton, which led us to Sutton and Larsson, and we all know what happened there. So no, I'd say it was frustrating, because I think under O'Neill we could have got a hell of a lot more out of him, but yeah, he scored a lot of very good goals for Celtic when he was here. Yeah, all worked out well in the end. Just to clarify in Paddy's clues, so the 3 English Premiership teams that he played for were Leeds, Middlesbrough and Newcastle. He was part of the Dynamo Zagreb side that knocked Celtic out of the Champions League qualifiers in August 98. We won 1-0 at Celtic Park. Any idea who scored? And I would never have got this. Darren Jackson.
Darren Jackson. What are you all about? Darren Jackson. But we then lost the return leg 3-0 in Zagreb. Do you know who scored for them?
Prosinecki.
He scored 2. What a player he was. I think he smoked about 60 a day.
Still, aye.
But he was
Reggie Blinker, no bottle, a 1v1.
Aye.
Can't remember.
Aye.
Can't remember.
That was it over for him.
Aye.
But that was
He
just
never come back from it.
that was just a few months before Viduka joined. So that was August 98, and then he arrived, I think, in the December, as I was saying. And he got 43 caps for Australia and captained them in the World Cup in Germany in 2006. So yeah, good player all round. We could have seen more of him, but as I say, all's well that ends well, when Martin O'Neill came in and the rest was history. Okay, so let's move on to this week's Mystery Celt. We've been making this a bit more interesting for the listeners at home in recent weeks, and the first 10 people who reply with the right answer to the Mystery Celt on Twitter win a month completely free of the Celtic Exchange Plus. To take part, just head to our Twitter page right now and you'll see the clues posted there in our pinned tweet, and good luck to everyone that's getting involved. Okay lads, are you ready for this week's Mystery Celt?
100%.
If it's not Paddy McQuart.
Thomas Rogner.
Not Thomas Ronya.
Darren Jackson.
Oh, that'd have been a good one. Okay.
Good segue.
Clue number 1. I've played for Celtic and Manchester United.
Paddy Crerand.
Brian McClure.
I knew you'd say Brian McClure. You love
He was my
Chalky.
favourite player.
Yeah. But it's not Brian McClure. Clue number 2. I've got 4 caps for my country. And I'll help you out, James. They weren't earned while playing for Celtic. I know you like that bit of clarity.
Lee Martin.
Not Lee Martin. And clue number 3. I scored for Celtic in a League Cup final win. So while the lads are having a wee think about that one, I want to give listeners a reminder of the additional content we provide over on the Celtic Exchange Plus. Among some special episodes we do with ex-players, coaches and journalists, we produce extra pre- and post-match podcasts for every Celtic game, and we've got a couple of really good shows there now following the League Cup final. If you haven't already subscribed, you can experience the Celtic Exchange Plus right now, absolutely free with our 7-day trial. Simply visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up to get started and to enjoy all the additional content we offer to subscribers. We've got subscriptions starting at just $1.50 a month, so if you enjoy what we do and want to hear even more from us across the week, then visit thecelticexchange.com/sign up now. I can see he's in deep
Is it not Brian
conference.
McClure? No?
Did you say Brian McClure?
Aye.
It's not Brian McClure.
Is it
No,
not?
more than 4 caps. Not many more, but more than 4 caps.
Scored
I suppose, I would say to give you credit, number 1 and number 3 probably do apply to Brian McClure. Number 2 doesn't.
What's clue number 4?
Clue number 4 is...
Nice try.
once we got off air, I'll give you a clue 4, but
Um,
it sounds like you're struggling, lads, which is it's exactly what I like to hear, to be honest. You want to throw a last guess in the mix? This dead ear does nothing for us, Miff.
any favours.
Nah,
You
that's
get nothing
not-
for me, no?
Nah.
Yeah.
Brian McClure?
Get nothing for me.
So you failed last week, which made it 4-3 to the hosts, which is myself and Paddy.
Poacher turned gamekeeper there, Paddy.
The score is now 5-3. So remember, if you think you know the answer to this week's Mystery Celt and want to win a month free of the Celtic Exchange Plus, then simply reply to our pinned tweet at Celtic Exchange using the hashtag Mystery Celt.